man, no matter who you are, The Last of Us Part 2 is a memorable experience. Oh man, this is crazy, man. Okay, let's get into it, bro. The Last of Us 2 won Game of the Year in 2020. I was part of the cohort of people who absolutely despised the game. I heard about the leaks, watched Abby play golf with Joel's head, and said sayonara. From reading the leaks, from reading the plot synopsis, I had absolutely no interest in experiencing this game for myself on the PlayStation 4. When I saw Naughty Dog go ahead and pick up the award for winning Game of the Year in 2020, I cried wolf, complained, and said, Ghost of Tsushima should have won! Ghost of Tsushima should have won! In hindsight, Doom Eternal actually should have won Game of the Year in 2020. I've played now all of those games that were nominated. Doom Eternal was the most quintessential best game, best evolution, best improved, an absolutely unforgettable gaming experience. And the other games were solid, but Ghost of Tsushima was just another good medieval open world game. And The Last of Us 2 has the most questionable story and plot of all time. But I digress. Let's deep dive into this. So I didn't play The Last of Us 2 out of a perspective of ignorance. I hadn't played the game, but I said, you know what, I finally got this gaming PC. I need to actually experience and see what all these people are talking about. I've heard horrible things about the story and I know I'm not gonna probably be happy with it, but I've heard the gameplay is something special. And by golly, it is. It's exhilarating, fun, gruesome. This is undoubtedly one of the most violent games ever. Even more so gruesome than the ridiculous glory kills from Doom and Doom Eternal. The realism makes it that much more chilling because, geez man, it feels so realistic, especially if you haven't unlocked the quick stealth kill upgrade, which makes every single stealth takedown that much more chilling. You may find this is a controversial take from somebody who didn't like the story, but The Last of Us 2 is an absolutely phenomenal video game. It's undoubtedly amazing and Naughty Dog should still be proud of it. The foundation is still undoubtedly there. They've built upon Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us. It's an elite linear experience and shows that Naughty Dog cannot be touched when it comes to creating unique linear tales. You aren't just going in a straight line like many other linear games, you're going in every single direction to reach your ultimate goal. Perpendicular, left, right, under, through every single crevice, over every single hurdle. Naughty Dog have thrown absolutely everything and the kitchen sink to make getting from point A to point B extremely hard. This is undoubtedly an adventure game where the goal isn't necessarily the destination, but the journey of you getting there. But there lays the problem. While Naughty Dog created a great experience, people fell in love with The Last of Us because of the story. More specifically, Joel and Ellie. Your enjoyment of The Last of Us Part 2 will heavily rely on how much you cared about Joel. Because if you only care about the ends, in this case revenge, Abby's entire journey will feel like a long-winded detour when it's actually the best part of the game. My guy, this is undoubtedly Abby's game. Well, without a question in my mind, it's her game. And that's, depending on who you are, is the game's biggest problem. I assure you this, the entire gaming community didn't wait 7 or even 10 years if you're playing here on PC to play as Abby. We waited this long to play as Joel and Ellie. Naughty Dog didn't give the people what they wanted, and a huge mass of them rejected the game entirely. Now that I've played the entire game to its conclusion, I have mixed feelings about it, but I will be honest, my thoughts on the game have substantially improved from before. A huge big shout out to Nixies because they ported this game in a phenomenal way. It's so well executed, it plays well, it's actually better optimized than The Last of Us Part 1 because I played that first before I eventually hopped onto this one, and the performance uplift was really good because that extra 15 frames helped me to be able to switch on frame generation and play at 4K 120 frames per second with some optimized settings at a 4K resolution. So I enjoyed it with a very good performance with a high visual clarity. So we're going to break down this game review into 3 distinct sections on why I think people didn't like this experience, including myself. Even though I enjoyed it overall, there are still significant issues in which this game has. Firstly, the premise. Revenge in the apocalypse. Not exactly the people's champ. And finally, the propaganda that is riddled throughout the entire experience. I'd say these are the 3 game's biggest issues, and so let's break it down. Firstly, the premise. The death of Joel was going to piss everybody off. That was, of course, the point. While Naughty Dog hoped that this would be an exciting plot point, in reality, his death is more so meaningless shock value. Let me explain. In The Last of Us 1, the goal was to reach the Fireflies and bring the cure across the country. Ellie. But the premise was not really the main goal, the reason we were playing and coming back to this game every single time. It was actually a secondary objective. Joel's decision in the hospital room absolutely confirms this. The premise in The Last of Us Part 2 is weak and does not have the capabilities to carry the entire story as a motivation on its back. While we all care for Joel, it pushes the story into such a rigid story structure and motivation that definitely isn't good enough. The game was doomed to be a weaker experience from the jump because it's harder to latch onto anything in this game, bro. And that's one thing this game heavily needed to happen. A better story writer would have looked at this premise and absolutely said no, there's no way in which we can craft a high quality story experience with such a rigid story structure. Revenge can go into one or two ways. Either the revenge can be satisfying or the revenge can be not satisfying. There's not so much that can be done within that framework. And it shows, man, it flipping shows. Another thing this game desperately needs for you to even get a modicum of enjoyment from it is a huge amount of disbelief. You seriously expect me to take a revenge story seriously in the apocalypse? One of the biggest complaints I see about Joel's death is why in the world would experienced survivors, Tommy and Joel, give up all their gear and give their names and even information about Jackson to a bunch of strangers? Bro, Chief, if I'm being absolutely honest, you're complaining about the wrong thing. We shouldn't have even reached this point in the story. Everything requires far too much coincidence just to reach this point. Abby almost died 100 times just traveling in Seattle. Going to the hospital just to get medical gear was a complete death trap. But you seriously expect me that the leader of the WLF, Isaac, would release an entire squad of senior soldiers and vital medics to find one random dude to exact revenge on behalf of an organization that the WLF has no affiliation with, to an organization that doesn't even exist anymore? It's simply preposterous. Considering how arduous it is to just travel Seattle, imagine traveling the entire damn country off a lead, not even a surety that no, we know where Joel is, we know what town he represents, and we know how much of an opposition we're going to be facing. No, this was just a lead. It's too far-fetched. The plot's convenience is ridiculous. For Abby to be saved by Joel, it's absolutely ridiculous. We have to suspend all belief to even remotely take the premise of this story seriously. Let's say they got lucky and actually found the city that Joel could be in. They'd never actually find them, and if they ended up asking too many questions, they would be clipped. Then, after killing Joel, they don't kill Ellie? What? Let me put it plain and simply, The Last of Us Part 2 is Abby's game, and that's okay. The reason I say this is because Abby undoubtedly has the best content in which this game has to offer. Ellie is essentially the second-class citizen, and I'm not necessarily angry about that because Ellie's entire motivation, I didn't even really find that compelling at all. I actually found the Seraphite saga much more compelling than just getting revenge for Joel. It's not a strong enough plot point, there's not enough happening for me to rise and really jump and hop into this. That rage that fueled, I'm sure, a lot of other players, by the time you get to Abby, that rage will have to dissipate, because if you keep that rage with you, you won't be able to enjoy the content being served with you as Abby. And the relationship between the two Seraphite youths is great. It's a tragic and heartwarming story. The empathy perhaps Abby gained, born from the guilt of killing Joel so brutally. Her entire journey is cool, but it would have been better if their stories were more intertwined. It would have been a lot better if we switched from Abby and Ellie a lot more frequently instead of having long breaks in gameplay between these two characters. Going for a long period with Ellie, then a long period with Abby created a huge amount of disconnect for me. It would have been better if they structured it in a way where Ellie was just missing Abby, and then now she's gone to another location, or there's remnants of Abby, or vice versa, or whatever it is, just to make it cool and be interesting that we're playing as two different characters who just happen to be missing each other. That's just a simple idea for me, which would have made it more interesting, because these two stories are so disconnected from each other. It doesn't improve the experience in any way. I played as Abby for so long, when it was time to play as Ellie again, I didn't really care for her gameplay. It's okay at times, but her story was definitely a lot less interesting. We liked the first game because of Joel and Ellie. Losing one essential part of the entire meal is a huge loss. A chocolate cake without the cocoa is just a cake. Dumb and Dumber is great because of the relationship between the two of them is magic. Ellie was loved because she was the sunshine that pushed through the clouds of the dark apocalypse. Losing that dynamic just made the game a whole lot more generic. While Abby was cool and brought something new to the table, I wanted a second serving of steak. Not a brand new meal, not fish. Naughty Dog are phenomenal storytellers, cinematographers. Their games also have the best graphics to date. But the plots, the foundation, the premise made this entire game a hard sell regardless of who you were trying to sell it to. The only way I was able to really enjoy this game was to care a lot less about Joel and his death. That allowed me to care for Abby. That allowed me to not be closed off and be blinded by revenge. That made me, for the first time, be happy that Ellie didn't kill Abby at the end. By the end of it all, it was just meaningless, man. But by sparing her, even more so. Abby killed her friends by taking revenge, and Ellie killed her friends by taking revenge. It would all be meaningless, but the death of all of those scars, WLF soldiers, would have meant something if Abby did die. Ultimately, by the end of it all, sparing Abby made Seattle Day 1 to 3 and all the people who died on either sides meaningless. This is not a discussion of who was good or who was bad. All I'm saying is that I'd be definitely very pissed off to find out that my brother, for example, was killed in the crossfire in a revenge plot. But then I find out that the person that they were aiming to kill in the first place, when they had a chance to get them, he let them live. Now for the last point, the propaganda is definitely potent in The Last of Us Part 2. The left was eating good in this game. We had a lesbian relationship at the forefront, we had a strong independent woman as the second main protagonist, and then of course we had a transsexual in the form of Lev. Of course in the apocalypse, Lev didn't have opportunity to take the medication, but the representation was definitely plentiful, which just simply annoyed a huge subset of players. Almost all of the strong males in the game were killed, crippled, or both. Quite a larger contrast because in comparison to the original game, such topics such as this were some things that were picked up by sharper players who could pick up the nuance. For example, Bill's partner in Billstown in The Last of Us Part 1, and Ellie's situation was a little bit more obvious in Left Behind, but nuance was still there. It wasn't put in the forefront, and it was something definitely pushed to the side. Did it bother me personally? Yes, it did bother me. I'm personally somebody who doesn't subscribe to that ideology. It's just something I personally don't agree with. So it was off-putting, but I was personally able to ignore it and push it aside and focus on the story that was being told. But in this divisive time, you will lose people, you will piss them off, and you will lose money. I don't think they should have pushed this hard to one side of the spectrum, but that is the choice of the creative. Right? If you're not a fan of the propaganda, just don't buy it. For me, I just found the prospect of a woman getting jacked in the apocalypse just too far-fetched, man. And giving this woman extra protein in the damn apocalypse to reach this level of muscle is definitely quite crazy, considering the huge amount of recovery time that would be needed, the huge amount of food resources that would be put into this lady. It just seems a little bit too far-fetched. Dude, it's quite rare to find a jacked woman in 2025 where we have all the resources and information available to us, but out of nowhere we have one huge jacked lady in the apocalypse. Come on, dog. Come on, dog. No matter who you are, the propaganda is clear as day. While the propaganda was definitely potent, it didn't make the game trash in any sense, but it does make the game an easy target. Strong mega woman kills our favorite character, the white male, Joel. So guys, those are overall my thoughts, man. I didn't talk too much about the gameplay because that's been talked about ad nauseum. The gameplay is great, the linear experience is great, and the looting is also just a great experience. I definitely was scared throughout the entire experience, and Naughty Dog has definitely not lost their touch. Those are my thoughts on The Last of Us Part 2. Tell me your thoughts down there in the comments. Do you disagree? Do you understand at least? At the very least, what I want you is to understand the reasons on why people would have issues with The Last of Us Part 2 and the issues and problems in which I experienced. If you're looking for a final rating from me, I'm going to give The Last of Us Part 2 a 7 out of 10. It's a good and great game, but because of the story, it's definitely pushing down the overall rating lower. Those are my thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video. I'm Explicit Sage. I'm out. See ya.